REIs basically that would be needed to support each of two seismic audits. And we documented those in a paper that was sent to Dominion. It was put into Adams, publicly available, and wanted to see if there was any questions on that paper, if you agree with our line of thinking, what supports which audit. And we will discuss schedule later this afternoon after the public portion of the call ends. So this may be brief right now on the audit, and schedule could be the longer discussion. But any comments? Any comments from here too?
Minus what should just summarize was the purpose for?
Okay. Give you a little brief summary of what is there. I prepared a list of items that we really divided our approach to audit in two pieces. One is the demand audit, and the other is the capacity audit. Completed demand audit, the audit one, we would like to have all those information so that we can do an intelligent and efficient audit. And I think they are pretty explicit. Only one thing I can mention, that since all this, there are many things, it would be very useful if you can provide periodically, some summary reports, summarizing, what has been done, so that we can continually be aware of conditions and also be aware of, we'll be ready to conduct the audit and basically define the audit scope, things like that. Now, at the beginning, I mentioned a little bit about the REIs. Basically, those are the REIs that kind of addresses all the stuff. And the only thing, I don't know where modified subtraction method, but you said there are some REI like structure-to-structure interaction type REI that you can relate to that item, and also Fermi's REI, that issue.
I'm sorry, Manus, what did you say about Fermi's REI?
Well, on that validation of the modified subtraction method, now you are doing it as a part of that sensitivity analysis anyway, okay? And we also have an REI on structure-to-structure SSSI interaction, but at this time it looks like it is also applicable for perhaps SSI analysis also, because the backfills really affect the output. So at any rate, they're all listed there, what we'll be looking for. And audit 2 is basically determining the how do we verify the capacity of these standard plant structures, and they are listed. Now, we didn't have one thing at the last meeting as to what you are planning to do on the Nastran analysis, and that's still something that we would like to know. Other than that, do you have any question on these things?
No, the list is very helpful to us, and so thank you for putting it together. What we're doing now is looking at your list, and we're looking at, evaluating the feedback that you gave us in the June 19th audit, and how that information affects the scope of the work, the methodologies that we're using, and the approach that we're going to take to prepare for the audit and address the REIs. So we're taking that information now, evaluating it, and putting together what we're calling the seismic closure plan, which will provide the information that you're looking for.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, that there is no misunderstanding, or more clarification. Okay. I have done that. I would like to give you some feedback on the responses that you provided earlier this week or maybe the week before. Oh, this July 3rd date? Yeah. Are you on July 3rd? Yeah. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. There are two things that I wanted to give you some feedback, which is basically consistency issue. On enclosure 2 of your report on page 4.
Can you tell me what RAI you're talking about?
Let me see.
I haven't thought. We didn't bring
The
it.
RAI number is 371-8.
Okay.
Okay.
71-8.
Yeah. And this is the enclosure number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And on that, on page 4, we defined log mean at some way. But on page 5, we also defined the same thing in a different way. So we need to have some consistency.
Awesome.
And whether these expressions like equation 1 and 2 are consistent to what definition of those items. That's on page 4 and 5. Your letter number Nordana 314-030, enclosure number 2.
Okay. Thank you.
And the other one that I have is on page 3 of 11 on FSAR markup of that same response. Okay, you have an FSAR markup.
Mm-hmm.
And on page 3, again, there is a definition of log mean is there, and also there is a definition of log SD there. SD probably means the standard deviation. And that kind of nomenclature is not right. So you need to take a look at that. That is on page 3 of 11, okay, on the first paragraph.
Okay.
And also on page 3-7, on the last two equations that you have provided, you need to define what those script means, like MLB, MEV. I can guess what they are, but they should be defined in the FSAR, because you have defined those information in the RAI response. However, the RAI response is not part of the FSAR. So in the FSAR markup, those items were really not defined. Okay, so you may want to take a look.
Okay, and they weren't. Well, we'll check on that.
Yeah, just check on that, because some of those scripts, like equations, you try to find out what they mean, and it's not correctly. It is not. The definition is not there. Okay, in the FSAR, since you are not providing the RAI response where it was really defined, some items there, but it was not. It is not going to be a part of the FSAR. So.
Yeah.
For completeness, we need to make sure that these are made consistent.
Okay.
There's Manas, I'm sorry. In that same page, I also noticed there's a typo that maybe they can look at in that same paragraph of that page you just alluded to, page 3-7.
Uh-huh.
And actually, it's an important typo, because it's page 3 of 11, and you talk about the log mean, and then parentheses, there's a mu sub ln, and then there's a log standard deviation, and then in parentheses, there is log SD, and then mu sub ln. That should be a sigma, I believe.
Okay. Anyway, you need to take a little, detailed look so that these are not there.
Okay.
I think that's all my quick look. Other than that, I think you have pretty much, the responses were pretty much in line with our meeting the other day. And the one thing, I was just wondering, when we asked in the previous RAI that what method of the SSI or SASE you are using, and we wanted to make sure whether it's the direct method or modified subtraction method. Now, you indicated that that it is a direct method, which is true. It was true at the time initially, but now that you are looking into also modified subtraction method. You may want to take a look, of that response, because you probably would be use also MSM method, in your analysis. So
Yeah.
this was one of the response to your question. Now I just don't know which one, but one of those questions, had that.
Yeah,
We used only direct method, which is true. You did that, for the current version of the FSAR. Okay.
right. Yeah, I think our thinking was for that RAI was that when we revised the FSAR to supplement the partial embedment and direct method with the modified subtraction method, that we would add that discussion in the FSAR at that time. So
That's okay. Just keep track of, because this right now, if somebody reads this later on,
right.
they will be a little bit confused.
It could be
Yeah.
marked to reflect that too, to make it less confusing.
Whatever. Just when I read it, because I had this additional information
Right.
that you will be using MSM, so I was just a little bit, But anyway, that it was okay as far as the previous, understanding that only the direct method would be used.
Right. Right. Yeah, I understand. We're in transition, and it complicates things a little bit.
Okay.
That's all I had. Manuel, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I have a couple of things on REI response. REI 3.7.1-7, which would be enclosure 1 of the letter that we just got last week.
Okay.
7.3.14. And this is related to while the site response analyses were done using in situ saprolite and in situ rock, and didn't consider the granular fill or the concrete fill.
Mm-hmm.
And so the response was, as it was explained to us during the meeting, I think it was the first meeting, that the lateral extent of the backfill was relatively limited, and approximately 3 meters, I think, was mentioned surrounding the structures. And so that's why the site response analysis was done with the in situ material. And then when you go to the SSI analysis, both the concrete fill and the granular fill are incorporated as part of the house model. So these are brick elements surrounding the structures that are like an integral part of the SSI model for the structure.
Right.
So you accounted for those things in that way through the SSI and not through the site response analysis, which is fine. However, when I started reading the response, you basically repeat that, but then you say, in the last paragraph, it says the effects of the granular structural fill above the concrete fill on the size of the building are neglected as of minor importance as described in FSAR section 37241.
That may not be.
I'm not sure I can agree with that, and of course, you are including it. You're not neglecting it. You are including it as part of the SSI model for the fully embedded case.
Right.
So I don't think it's correct to say that they're neglected. So that's the first thing, and then the second thing, when you're explaining the lateral extent of this backfill is limited, you make a reference to a figure, FSAR figure 254-206. So when I go to that figure, it's really hard to say anything in that figure. First of all, because the perimeter of the structures are not clear, and also because dimensions are not given. And of course, there is a note somewhere there that says that the limits of the excavation are something like they're only for they're not like completely well defined at this point. So I got confused because in the meeting, of course, you mentioned something like 3 meters surrounding the structures for the excavation. Then when I went to the FSAR figures for the reactor building and the control building SSI models, the brick elements surrounding the walls are consistent with that. They're 3.13 meters for the reactor building, 3.73 meters for the control building, so that makes sense. The only thing that, to kind of close the loop here is where is the actual documentation where we can use to sort of confirm that those dimensions are actually, correctly given in that plan where you show the excavation? Because I couldn't really tell.
Yeah, I agree. I tried to look that, and that looks like a photograph or something. It's very difficult. I couldn't figure it out either.
Okay, we'll take a look at that and get back with you
Okay.
on that.
Anything else on these REI responses?
No, I don't have anything.
Honestly,
I think
what-
they are pretty much on what we have discussed during our first public meeting.
Ruben, do you want to say anything about the response on 3717 about neglecting the fill and what we're doing with the fully embedded model?
I think I agree with the NRC regarding that. I think that statement was left over from the previous revision, from the current revision of the FSAR.
Yeah.
Now, because we are including the fully embedded models, I think that has to be deleted. I do agree with that.
I think it's similar to what we were talking about earlier where, when we talk about whether you're using the direct method or the modified subtraction method, so it's another one of those situations, but certainly the revision to the FSAR will address all these concerns that you have.
Yeah, just one more thing, though. This is a new response, right? So this is...
Yeah, this is a new one, but they need to look at it and see if some modification needed.
Yeah, the problem is that we don't have, it's just a little bit tricky to be responding. We're answering your question for the FSAR that you've reviewed that was submitted in December, but based on the sensitivity studies that we've done and the feedback we've gotten from you all, we're planning on changing that. So how do we answer the REI? Do we say, okay, yeah, what you saw in December, this is the answer for that, but when we get to the next submittal, the answer will be a little bit different, but you haven't seen that yet, so you don't know what it looks like. You don't know if you'll have a question or not. It's a little confusing.
Yeah, we'll probably have to wait until the next revision come in to see, but still these figures and things like that, you can think about how you want to.
Oh, certainly, yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So that's the discussion on the REIs related. Let's see, we can move on to REI 3742. Dominion provided some slides that discuss. This was slides REI. Dominion provided some slides.
Not here, so
He's on the phone.
Larry's on phone.
You're still on the phone?
But it's concerning. I guess you might be interested in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am on the phone. That's fine.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Vlad has a copy.
I tried to call him and I didn't get it.
He's working from home.
Oh, that's
why if you call here,
I left a message.
So I'm sorry. So Dominion provided some slides that discuss their plans for responding to this REI, and I think Vlad has had a chance to review them. And if Manus needs more time, we can defer, but we'll let Vlad go from this point.
Okay, probably it's better if Dominion will present the slides and I may ask questions during their presentation.
Yeah, okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right, so Vlad, we had the discussion in June with you about how we're defining OBE, and we went back and thought about it further and looked at what was in the FSAR and recognized that, yeah, it could use some clarification. So Alidad is going to present the slides now for you, and certainly jump in if you want to have any comments or questions as he presents, okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Sure. Alidad?
Thank you, Gina. So, as Gina mentioned, during the May meeting, the staff suggested that the current language of the FSAR may be confusing and need to be further clarified. And also in our June meeting in Rockville, they also suggested that they have a concern that there should be a single OBE defined for the plant. And in this presentation, we would want to try to address both of these concerns and provide a revised language to the FSAR. And we'll also modify our RAI response to reflect these changes. In addition to the proposed FSAR markups, COLA Part 7 describing NAP's departure 37-1 will also be revised to be consistent with the FSAR changes. So if you have the presentation, I'm moving on to page 3 or slide number 3 of that, which has a paraphrased version.
I have it. I'm following you. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay. So it has the paraphrased version of the question 374-2, which states that Section 3744 defines two plant shutdown OBE spectra. The first one as 1/3 of the CSTRS, and the second one as a site-dependent OBE derived from the SSE spectra at grade. This section states that the plant shutdown is required only if there is an exceedance of both OBE response spectra. It further states that according to the RSG 01, the OBE should be the lower of 1 and 2 to avoid explicit response or design analysis required for the OBE. It asks us to clarify how Section 3744 meets the guidance of RSG 1 and or provide justification for an alternative approach. So in our response and in what we discussed in May meeting, we went over the technical basis of our approach, and we explained that in the case of NOTAM 3, all safety-related components will be designed to meet both CSTRS and site-specific SSE. Therefore, our current approach is justified. However, as I mentioned earlier, we agreed that the current text of the FSAR needs clarification. And we are proposing to modify that text as is shown in this slide and the next slide. For the changes in Section 371, the new FSAR section will start by saying the Unit 3 plant shutdown OBE response spectrum limit is established to ensure that 1, if not exceeded, plant equipment designed to withstand seismic loads will have a margin to design ground motion response spectra, and 2, that the seismic instrumentation system timely alerts plant operators within 4 hours and support decision making within 8 hours as to whether or not the shutdown of the plant following a seismic event is needed. If you go to the next slide, it follows by saying that the plant shutdown OBE is defined as 1/3 of the SSE. The following 2 sets of horizontal and vertical response spectra serve as a reference against which OBE exceedance checks are performed at grade for the purpose of plant shutdown. The first bullet is 1/3 of the CSTRS presented in figures 20201 and 20202 that define the free field ground motion at bottom of the RPFD and CD foundations. And the second bullet is 1/3 of the performance-based surface response spectra, or PBSRS, presented in figure 252311, that define the Unit 3 site-specific free field ground motion at grade. We further clarify that because all safety-related SSEs will be designed, analyzed, and qualified to meet both the CSTRS and site-specific errors, plant shutdown is required if both response spectra in A and B are exceeded, as described in Section 3744. will add more clarification to the FSAR language, as stated in the next slide.
Are we
Slide
done?
number 6. Yes.
Most people, I believe, have the slides, and we appreciate your efforts in reading them. But we could probably, most of the staff has probably already read them, so we probably need to read slides.
No. It's okay. It's okay. There are only 3 more slides or 2 more slides. It will not take forever. It's better if he reads, because I have a question on the next slide. Okay. Please, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry if it seems like it's taking forever. I'm trying to go over it as fast as I can. But
and I was mistaken for my input there, so please continue.
So this is in the next slide. This is still part of our suggested changes to FSAR Section 271, and here we are providing an example, and let me read it. It says exceedance of response spectra A and B is evaluated independently, i.e. an envelope of the 2 response spectra is not used. And for example, a response spectrum that exceeds B at a low frequency and exceeds A, so B was the site-specific response spectra, and A is the CSTRS at higher frequencies, but falls below the envelope of the 2 response spectra, is considered as exceeding OBE, thus requiring shutdown of the plant as discussed in FSAR Section 2744. So before I read the next part, if you go to the next slide, that provides the example that I'm describing here. And what it shows, the black curve is schematic of a CSTRS, and the blue curve is a schematic of 1/3 site-specific SSE. And these are obviously don't correspond to this specific site. It's just to make a point. And there are 3 examples of events are shown in this figure. If you look at the first one, the yellow curve, this curve falls completely on the 1/3 of the CSTRS, and as such, it's considered not exceeding OBE. If one looks at the green curve, that one falls completely below 1/3 of the site-specific SSE. So because all the safety-related equipment are designed to a site-specific SSE, this one does not exceed the OBE. However, if you have a curve similar to the red curve, even though it would fall under the envelope of the 2, this one at low frequencies exceeds the site-specific 1/3 of SSE, and at high frequencies it exceeds the 1/3 of CSTRS. Therefore, it does not meet our criteria, and it would consider an exceedance of OBE. So, any questions up to this point?
No, not yet. I have a question on your second bullet on slide 6.
Okay, so let's move on there. There you say the use of CSTRS in A above as a basis for defining OBE at grade for the purpose of plant shutdown is conservative because it neglects amplification of the standard ground motion as it propagates from the bottom of the RBFD and CB foundation to the plant grade.
Okay, I have a question. I have a kind of comment on this. You are saying that it is conservative because it is defined at the grade. Okay, this statement will work for probably all power plants except North Anna, which has very complex subsurface geology. And again, if you look at the schematics that you submitted to us, actually not necessarily to the schematics, if you compare the elevation of your zone 4 at different locations at the power plant, you can see that it's very different. This is why this kind of generic statement is not applicable for North Anna, because North Anna, if you move to, I believe it is west corner, for example, of the plant, the elevation of hard rock is 260. Basically, you can have hard rock on the top on the grade. If you move in other direction, it's opposite. But at any rate, this is kind of also raises the question and discussion potentially about where